Greetings and welcome to episode 109 of Bible 180, 180 episodes between Genesis and Revelation. Today we're on Matthew 27, 15 through 26, the death of Jesus on the cross. And Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John tell it in a little bit different way. So instead of getting into the nuances of the difference between them, which could take many episodes and would be very interesting, but would be a little too kind of detailed, I think. I'm going to harmonize a little bit about the death of Jesus and talk Mark and Luke and John in a cursory way, in a shorthanded way when we get to that point. But when we're talking about the trial before Pilate, the trial before Pilate is the emphasis of this episode, not the death of Jesus, which will be the next one. The trial before Pilate is an interesting story in, oh, I really shouldn't say this, but, or, I know I shouldn't do this, but, or, it's not what I intended to do, but. Have you ever said that? It's not what I intended to do, but it ended up happening. Have you ever said a sentence like that? Have you ever heard a sentence like that when you say, I really shouldn't do this, but? The but negates, the word but always negates what went before. And when you say, I really shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, the but negates what went before. I know I shouldn't do this, but you're going to do what you intended not to do. The but doesn't take you off the hook for responsibility for your words and actions or intentions. So, harmonizing a little bit about the trial before Pilate, let me say something that you already know, and that is we normally don't recite a list of the villainous people around Jesus every Sunday morning. But every time we worship, we speak regularly the name of one of the villains, Pontius Pilate. Every time we say the creed, we point out that Jesus suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. Other than Jesus being born of the Virgin Mary, Pilate is the only person that we name every Sunday in the Apostles' and in Nicene Creed. The name of Pontius Pilate, the infamous villain, lives on, and we name him every time we say the creed in worship. Pilate didn't mean to do what he did, but he did. He shouldn't have said what he said, but he did. He didn't intend to do what he did, but he did it. And saying, I don't intend to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, doesn't get you off the hook for doing what you didn't intend to do. Now, let's talk about Pontius Pilate for a moment. He was the Roman governor, okay? The Roman governor of Judea. He was a rising political star. As governor of Judea, he was just one step away from the Roman Senate, and all that stood in the way of him becoming a part of the Roman Senate was succeeding in ruling as the Roman governor over Judea, okay? In the early years of Jesus' ministry, Pilate really found no reason to move against Jesus or to squash Jesus' ministry because most of Jesus' ministry was outside of Pilate's jurisdiction. When Jesus was inside Pilate's jurisdiction, Jesus mostly caused a stir among the Jewish leaders, the priests and the Pharisees and the scribes. So Pilate saw him as harmless to the Roman occupying state of Judea. The Jesus thing was only sparking small interests, and it didn't threaten Rome's security on his grip on the region. But quite unexpectedly, Caiaphas, the Jewish high priest, Caiaphas was Jewish, Pilate was Roman. Caiaphas had Jesus arrested during the festival of unleavened bread as they were celebrating the Passover Caiaphas had Jesus arrested. The Jewish leaders put Jesus through a speedy trial, then sentenced him to death for religious reasons, claiming that Jesus said he was the Messiah. Caiaphas could not have put Jesus to death because he was a Jewish leader, but he had to rely on civic or political leaders to be able to do that. And for that, they needed Pilate. Pilate was the only Roman leader who could execute a death sentence for civil or political reasons. And so the Jewish leaders accused Jesus of subversion to the government by refusing to pay taxes, by claiming to be king of the Jews. It was for those reasons, legal and civic and political reasons, that they brought Jesus to Pilate. Okay, they brought Jesus to Pilate on religious grounds because the Jewish leaders could not put Jesus to death. It needed to be Roman, political, civil, legal death sentence. Okay, got that clear? Caiaphas, Jewish, Pilate, Roman. What's interesting is that as we kind of harmonize the trial of Jesus, in the gospel, in John, he tells most about the trial before Pilate from a whole chapter's worth of information from the middle of chapter 18 to the middle of chapter 19. Think of that. At the beginning, Judas betrays Jesus. Then he goes on trial before Pilate. At the end of that, he's crucified. So Pilate is a major person in John's story. I know we're on Matthew, but looking forward to John's, Pilate plays a major role. And in that trial before Pilate, there are 7 scenes, okay? In scene 1, Jesus is brought before Pilate and charges are made. Pilate tries to pass back to the Jewish leaders and say, judge him according to your Jewish laws, and they refuse. In scene 2, Pilate says to Jesus, are you the king of the Jews? Which would be reason for Pilate to judge him. But instead, Jesus makes no answer. Remember that part that we've heard in church. In scene 3, Pilate tries to get Jesus released by asking the Jewish people, well, do you want Jesus or do you want Barabbas? Pilate is hoping secretly that they choose Barabbas, the bandit, but Pilate's plan doesn't work, and they choose to free Barabbas and keep Jesus on trial. Pilate didn't mean to do it that way, but he didn't mean it, but negates what went before. In scene 4, Pilate has Jesus flogged, hoping that the violent punishment would be sufficient, but his plan fails, and Pilate's options begin to slip through his fingers. In scene 5, Pilate presents Jesus to them and says, I find no basis for any charges against him. Pilate does not want to have Jesus crucified and have his blood on his hands, but he still hands Jesus over. Pilate becomes complicit and guilty. He didn't mean to, but he ended up doing what he didn't want to do. In scene 7, Pilate is reminded that his first priority is loyal to the Roman Empire, and Pilate just surrenders Jesus to be crucified. The drama is complete. An innocent man, Jesus, is put to death. Pilate didn't mean to do it, but he did. What became of Pilate? Well, his political career faltered and failed. His wife turned against him. In fact, it's likely that the wife of Pilate became a Christian. In the midst of the trial of Jesus, while Pilate was sitting in a judgment seat, his wife sent him a message saying, have nothing to do with that innocent man, because in a dream last night I suffered much on account of him. Pilate didn't mean to do it, but he did. He didn't mean to turn out the way that it did, but it did. That doesn't let him off the hook. Intentions don't let you off the hook. Good intentions don't let you off the hook for bad outcomes. suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. Um, when you think about Pilate and the dilemma he was in, can you see yourself in any of the actions of Pilate? Have you ever said, I know I probably shouldn't do this, but everybody's doing it, and I think I'm going to. I know this is a bad decision, but I'm going to do it anyway. I know I shouldn't behave this way, but I don't want people to think I'm going to stick in the mud, so I'm going to do it anyway. I know it's wrong just to fudge a little bit on the truth, but I'm going to do it anyway. After all, it's not a big thing. The but negates what went before. Don't be a Pontius Pilate. Don't live your life thinking, but fill in the blanks. Suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. Pilate tried to avoid taking personal responsibility. He tried to manipulate the situation and assert his blamelessness and innocence. Pilate never learned that you never do wrong when you do the right thing, no matter how difficult it is. Pilate never learned that you never regret taking the high road. Pilate didn't learn that, and because he didn't do the right thing by letting Jesus go, his spirit began to die within him, and he put to death Jesus, who was innocent and blameless. I'll tell you what, it's easy to be a Pilate. It's easy to take the easy way out. It's easy to do the wrong thing rather than to take the high road and do the right thing. But don't be a Pilate. Don't be a Pilate. Let the Spirit of Jesus and his truth and his innocence and blamelessness live in you to have you do the right thing. I hope that you have a great day. I hope you keep smiling. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And until then, you take good care. Bye-bye.